The Agora's 2010 trip to the College Media Spring National Convention in New York City was a memorable blend of seeing the sights of the city, learning journalism from some of the nation's best, and building an esprit de corps among staff members. For several of the students, it was their first trip to any large city. For most, it was their first look at Times Square, the media capital of the world. And for all of them, the convention's world-class speakers and workshop leaders provided a priceless glimpse into the world of journalism. The trip was a classic example of trains, planes, and automobiles. It started with a flight to Newark Airport, including all the usual waiting and lobbies. That was followed by a van ride to the hotel at 103rd and Broadway in Manhattan. The view from the van provided students with their first glimpse of the New York City skyline. The students chose the Marrakesh Hotel, a 10-minute subway ride from the convention, to save money. The hotel, described as a low-budget alternative for cost-conscious tourists, was clean and safe, but the 5-story walk-up to our rooms was a challenge. The subway was the students' passport to anywhere in Manhattan, and despite arriving on a rainy day, they didn't waste any time before attacking the city. First stop was Ground Zero, where the hustle and bustle of construction stands in stark contrast to the terror of 9/11, 2001. Across the street, students gazed in awe at the 9/11 exhibits at St. Paul's Church, where the injured received their first care after the terrorist attack. From poignant photos of people lost in the fall of the World Trade Center to patches donated to the church from hundreds of police and fire departments around the world, the church is a dramatic reminder of the tragedy and triumph surrounding 9/11. Then it was off to Times Square, for the rain didn't keep them from their first glimpse at the glitz of Broadway in the heart of the theater district, where they would be spending the next 3 days. There were lots of oohs and ahs, craning of necks, and, of course, taking pictures. The final stop of the day was the Museum of Modern Art, where Van Gogh masterpieces mixed with original Tim Burton drawings.
It's so cool to see exactly the text like a star here.
That was followed by dinner at a restaurant where Broadway hopefuls entertained
Nobody! No one!
The next day, it was still raining. New York experienced record rainfall that weekend, but it didn't matter to the Agora students who were inside, communing with million-year-old residents of Earth at the New York Museum of Natural History. The extracurricular learning continued, along with the picture-taking and the team building, and more picture-taking, and more picture-taking, and more picture-taking. Eventually, it was time to return to Times Square for the College Media Spring Convention at the Marriott New York Marquis Hotel. Students gathered in small groups with expert presenters from some of the nation's best newspapers and TV stations, as well as listening to dynamic keynote speakers.
I'm hoping that I'm really going to focus on collaboration. If I were to sort of redo this whole sort of title and summary, I would actually have just called it collaboration. Taking a look at what we do in journalism is really storytelling, right? It's really thinking about how to tell stories, how to engage users, how do we get our communities.
One of the highlights was Brian Stelter, a 24-year-old who used a blog to make it to the New York Times.
And I've been able to make that leap, and today I'm going to try to tell you how I did that and how you can do that also. But it is possible now, thanks to the web and the way the web is fragmented media, if you figure out what that passion is and figure out what you're curious about. We're all lucky we have this opportunity, and even though it can be very hard to see. And on the upper right-hand corner, there's a story about the internet and a broadband plan that will affect the country for the next 10 years. That was written by me and a colleague, kind of at the last minute, and I'll tell you later about why it was such a struggle. But that story was probably read by hundreds of thousands of people, because it's there on the front page of the paper.
Another highlight was getting to meet Laura Hansen, the Agora's rep at College Media Network, the company that manages the Agora's website. Laura was one of the convention presenters.
For example, I didn't go to a huge basketball school, but say I went to Duke and I'm a huge Duke basketball fan, I most likely will subscribe to their RSS feed.
Also valuable was advice from Frank Lamonti, Executive Director of the Student Press Law Center, the nonprofit that gives free legal advice to student journalists.
They have, if this is not a segment that Comedy Central made publicly available on its own website, if it's something that somebody TiVo'd and put on YouTube, then you may be violating copyright by hosting that.
Speakers covered every topic. Here is a University of Indiana professor who is known nationwide for his design expertise.
Important, telling that story. It's very clear to see that centerpiece. Why? Action is really basic and it kind of cuts across the top. It's kind of cool. Look at the grid. Look at how that unifies that spread. Actually, it is kind of it's an interesting thing. All that complicated information is given a structure that's simple and elegant.
One of the students' favorite speakers was this Wall Street Journal reporter who gave street-smart advice in an informal setting.
And I feel old. But get off your damn computers. I know that people spend a lot of time, especially in college, texting like that guy's doing back there, or on their laptops like that guy's doing back there, and there's probably like live tweeting as we speak, and Facebook and everything. But you cannot, if you want to have a situation where you develop someone's trust and confidence, it is not done electronically. You might meet someone and identify someone electronically, but if you're ever going to really develop a source over time, you have to present yourself as an individual. It's not, you're not an IM screen name, you're not a Facebook friend. You're a person talking to another person, live in the flesh, and developing a relationship.
Mark Halperin of Time magazine and a best-selling author gave an inspirational keynote speech.
In the business for a while, that there are no great business models right now in most areas. A lot of the so-called old media, like the places I've worked, ABC News and Time magazine, struggle every day to figure out, if you're in management there, how are we going to have an economically viable organization going forward?
A number of the Agora students took side field trips to New York media outlets, including Time Out New York, one of the city's top entertainment magazines. Their tour guide was the magazine's publisher, Marisa Farina, an amazing opportunity for fledgling journalists.
It makes the sales job very difficult because you're trying to get somebody in and they say, well, I want to make sure that I'm being mentioned, and we can't guarantee that. So,
And you don't want to show that maybe they got the advertisement because you got the story to take.
Exactly. Because then you'll get the call of, you said you didn't do this, but it looks like you just did that. And also printing a magazine is really expensive. So we're constantly going back and looking at new paper options and looking at new printers to lower our costs. And since we have such a huge subscriber base, there are postal costs. And as you know, the post office continues to increase their rates without really increasing service.
The tour of the New York Times was definitely my biggest highlight of the trip. And we went upstairs to the newsroom and definitely thought it was going to be louder, but it was actually really quiet. And everyone was just doing their own thing, writing their own stories, and a lot of reporters were up doing stories, but then you also got to see some working, so that was really cool too.
I attended a couple of design workshops. I actually attended 4 of them. I had 2 yesterday. One was a redesign workshop, and the other one had to do with more of the mechanics. And today was one that was strictly based on mechanics, like 10 different rules for reformatting. And then this other one was a magazine cover design. That one was cool because they said they grabbed their inspiration for all their designs from like street posters, album covers, old concert posters, and I thought that was so cool because that's exactly how I like to design.
The convention last year, and I think that this time I got a lot more out of it because I actually knew like what I was interested in, and I think that like there was one session that was really cool. We went to a guy that talked about the inverted pyramid, and I think that there's some good stuff that could help with our new writers and things. And it was kind of cool because I had Marissa follow me around today, and I felt like I was kind of helping her out with some stuff, and we were both kind of learning from each other a bunch about kind of talking out different things about writing styles and interviewing and all that kind of cool stuff. So that was really cool. But my favorite session was when I talked to these girls that they were all students from a small college in Virginia, and now they all live in New York and work in the city, and that's pretty much what I would love to do. And it was really cool to hear from actual students that went through all of it, and it shows that, you know, I could really end up like that. And
we just got done speaking with a Wall Street Journal reporter, really real person, someone that wasn't all fancied up and trying to give a presentation. He was giving advice. Another real big thing too was how to stress to your source, you know, how important it is to make sure you get their side of the story across. You know, that it could be good for their business or it could be good for their department. Whatever it is, make sure you stress to them the importance of getting that side of the story, you know, because they want you to be as unbiased as possible, and you want to be as unbiased as possible, so you want to try to get as many different aspects as you can.
my favorite part about the conference was the tour that we took at Time Out New York. I thought the atmosphere was really cool, and I just felt like it would be a really cool place to work. It was an awesome view, and it just felt like the kind of atmosphere that I would like to work in because it seemed really relaxed and everyone seemed just really comfortable.
I really liked how they made it seem like it was so easy to live in New York and to make it. Like there was this one girl that lived in a small town in Virginia, and when she came here she made it so easy, and she's lived here for 8 months and she just did it. And I learned how important contacts are. Like to keep an Excel spreadsheet of everybody that you know in New York and just call them and see if you can sleep on their couch for a night and then go from there. So I learned a lot in that way. It's all about the contacts.
As the convention progressed, there was still time for more fun, like an evening in Little Italy where the maitre d' stood on the sidewalk luring customers inside, and more picture taking, and more picture taking. As the convention ended, the sun finally came out long enough for a walk in Central Park, where the flowers were blooming and John Lennon was remembered.